Imagine a world where survival depended not on conquest, but on cooperation, where the strength of the group outweighed the might of the individual. This is the world of hunter-gatherers, a society that thrived on shared knowledge, mutual trust, and collective effort. They didn't build cities or own land, but they mastered the rhythms of nature. Every member had a role. Some hunted, some gathered, some cared for the young. The survival of the whole relied on the participation of the many. The shift from wandering to settling is not just a change in location. It's a transformation of human society. It's a moment when collaboration becomes not just a choice, but a necessity for survival. This is the story of how humanity moved from small cooperative bands to complex societies. It's a journey that reshaped the course of history, and it begins with the simplest of truths, that we are stronger together. So, what exactly are we talking about? We're not just looking at a shift in diet or tool use. We're examining a fundamental change in how humans relate to their environment and to each other. Hunter-gatherers lived in small mobile groups, relying on their knowledge of nature for survival. Their lives were shaped by cooperation, shared responsibility, and a deep connection to the land. This shift wasn't just about food production. It created new ways of thinking about property, labor, and community, all of which laid the groundwork for the complex societies we know today. So when we talk about the roots of collaboration, we're looking at how humans moved from individual survival to collective effort, a transition that changed the very fabric of human society. You might think this is just a history lesson, but the way we work together today, whether in a corporate boardroom or a classroom, still echoes the patterns of ancient collaboration. The roots of our social systems are buried in the soil of human history, and they shape how we connect, compete, and cooperate. When we look at the transition from foraging to farming, we're not just observing a shift in diet, we're uncovering the evolution of trust, hierarchy, and shared responsibility. These are the invisible scaffolds of civilization, holding our modern world together. Understanding these roots isn't just about the past, it's about the present. Every decision we make about how to organize labor, share resources, or build community is an echo of those ancient choices. We are still answering the same questions that our ancestors faced. This is why you should care, because the way we live now is still shaped by the way we lived then. The patterns of collaboration that emerged in the shift to agriculture are the blueprint for how we build, sustain, and innovate today. By studying this transition, we gain insight into the deep, unconscious structures that guide our behavior. We see how cooperation, conflict, and compromise have always been the cornerstones of human progress. The first humans were not solitary actors, but part of tightly woven social networks. Hunter-gatherer societies thrived on cooperation, sharing resources, and collective decision-making. Their survival depended on trust and mutual aid, not individualism. As populations grew and environments changed, the need for more stable food sources led to the first experiments in farming. The shift from nomadic life to settled communities marked a turning point in human history. Agriculture brought surplus, specialization, and the rise of new social structures. But it also introduced inequality, conflict, and the need for more complex forms of collaboration to manage growing complexity. From the first seeds planted in the soil to the first cities rising from the earth, human collaboration has always been the foundation of progress. The roots of our modern world lie deep in those early bonds. Imagine you're in a forest with your family, hunting and gathering food. You all work together, but no one is in charge. You share what you find, and everyone helps when someone is sick or needs help. Then one day, someone finds a patch of wild wheat. They start planting it near their home. It grows quickly, and everyone starts to help with the planting and harvesting. This new way of living brings more food, but also more work. People start to rely on each other more, and they learn how to work together even when they don't all agree. So the journey from being hunter-gatherers to becoming farmers was not just about food. It was about learning how to work together, even when it's hard, and how to share and care for each other. The journey begins with a quiet, deliberate act. The gathering of seeds, the observation of the land, the recognition of patterns that hint at a deeper rhythm in nature. This is not mere chance. It is a form of intentionality, a prelude to something more structured, more shared, more human than the simple act of foraging alone. This is where the first threads of collaboration begin, not in the act of working together, but in the shared recognition of a potential future, one that requires more than one person to realize. The setup is a silent agreement, a mutual understanding that this is not just about survival, but about possibility, about the seeds of something larger, something communal. This moment is both ancient and universal, the first step in a transformation, a transition from individual effort to collective intention, from hunter-gatherer to agricultural society. The transition from hunter-gatherer societies to agricultural communities was not a sudden leap, but a gradual shift driven by the need for stability and surplus. It began with the domestication of plants and animals, which allowed for the first forms of settled living. Domestication required careful observation and experimentation. People learned which plants grew best in certain conditions, and which animals could be bred for specific traits. This knowledge was passed down through generations. As these practices became more refined, they led to the creation of surplus food. This surplus allowed some members of the community to specialize in other tasks, such as tool-making, trade, or governance. This is when collaboration really began to take shape. Collaboration was no longer just about sharing food. It became a way to pool knowledge and labor. People began to work together on irrigation systems, storage, and defense, creating a more complex and interconnected society. The shift from nomadic life to settled communities was not just about survival. It was about building something larger than oneself. It was about creating a shared future, rooted in cooperation and mutual reliance. The clever twist lies in the shift from individual survival to collective well-being. No longer is the hunter's success measured solely by his own gain, but by the strength of the group's shared resources. This shift redefines the relationship between the individual and the community. The hunter is no longer just a provider. He is a contributor to a system that sustains all. In this new social contract, the individual's role is not diminished but transformed. He becomes a node in a network, his actions interdependent with those of others. This twist was not just social, it was existential. It redefined what it meant to be human, turning survival into cooperation and individuality into responsibility. Beneath the surface of human history lies a complex web of genetic and archaeological evidence that reveals how early humans began to shift from solitary foraging to cooperative labor. DNA analysis shows that as humans migrated out of Africa, their genetic diversity increased, indicating a growing need for collaboration to survive in new and varied environments. The transition to agriculture was not just a change in diet, but a transformation in social structure. A shared labor required new forms of communication and mutual accountability. This shift in human behavior, driven by necessity and environment, laid the foundation for the first cooperative societies, where knowledge and effort became shared resources. The science of human evolution is not just about bones and genes. It is about the quiet, persistent hum of cooperation that shaped our species into what it is today. Imagine a group of people working together to move a massive stone. Each person contributes a little strength, and together they accomplish what no single individual could. This is the essence of collaboration, not just in agriculture, but in every stage of human development. The stone is heavy, but not too heavy for one person. It's too heavy for all of them alone. But when they work together, the weight is distributed and the task becomes manageable. This is the power of shared effort. This analogy isn't about strength alone, but about the collective will to achieve something greater. Collaboration is the unseen force that allows us to build, to grow, and to endure. In the same way, our transition from hunter-gatherers to agricultural societies wasn't just about food. It was about cooperation, about trust, and about the shared vision of a better future. So let's not be too smart about history. Sometimes the simplest analogy is the most accurate and the most human. Comment this emoji if you made it to the end. You've never seen the first cities. They were not built like today's metropolises, but they were the beginning of something vast, complex, and entirely human. Imagine a world where cooperation was not just rare, but nearly impossible, where trust had to be earned, and survival depended on the strength of the group. It was in these early cities that humans discovered how to turn the fragile act of cooperation into something enduring. The birth of institutions, the first steps toward civilization. This is the story of how humans built not just places, but the foundations of society, and why it still matters today. We're talking about the moment when humans stopped being nomadic and started building places where they could live together, work together, and trust each other. It's the birth of what we now call cities. These early settlements weren't just clusters of huts. They were the first attempts to create shared spaces with rules, roles, and responsibilities. They were the beginning of structured cooperation. These cities grew because people needed to protect their resources, resolve conflicts, and create systems that could support more people over time. That's when institutions like councils, laws, and trade networks started taking shape. What we're really looking at is the first step toward the complex societies we live in today. The foundation of everything from government to commerce was laid in those early, uncertain moments of cooperation. You might think cities are just buildings and streets, but they're the foundation of everything we value: justice, economy, culture. The way cities are structured shapes the rules we live by. The institutions that emerge from cities, governments, courts, schools, are not just systems. They are the scaffolding of our shared life. They determine how we resolve conflicts and create order. You might not notice it, but your ability to live in a society with millions of others is built on the same principles that made cities possible. It's a quiet, collective effort that defines our modern world. Understanding how cities and institutions came to be isn't just academic. It's a way to see the invisible systems that make our lives possible. It's a reminder that cooperation is the root of our shared existence. The first cities rose along great rivers, where water shaped both survival and society. These were not just places to live. They were crucibles of human innovation, where people began to build institutions to manage resources and create order. In Mesopotamia, the Code of Hammurabi emerged as a written system of justice. It was a radical idea, a set of rules that applied to all, not just the powerful. It was a step toward the rule of law, a concept that would shape civilizations for millennia. The Greeks built city-states like Athens, where democracy was born. It was not perfect, but it was a bold experiment in shared governance. People debated, voted, and held leaders accountable. Ideas that would later fuel revolutions and rights movements. Then came Rome, with its vast empire and the idea of law as a universal force. The 12 Tables and later Roman law spread across continents, setting a precedent for legal systems that still influence modern nations today. The Middle Ages saw the rise of feudal systems, but also the emergence of universities and guilds. These were new forms of cooperation, shaped by necessity and curiosity. They laid the groundwork for the modern world, even as kingdoms and empires rose and fell. From the earliest cities to the modern world, institutions have been the scaffolding of human progress. They are not perfect, but they are essential. Without them, cooperation would be chaos, and chaos is the enemy of civilization. Imagine a group of people, like your classmates, deciding to build a playground together. They need rules, so they make a list. That list becomes a rule book, and the playground becomes a city. Now imagine those rules growing up, becoming bigger and more complex. They start to shape how people live, work, and share things. That's how cities and institutions are born. Even if some people don't follow the rules help everyone stay safe. They are like a team of invisible friends who help you make the right choice every time. Cities are like giant playgrounds, and the rules are what help everyone play together. That's what institutions are. They're the rules that let us all live in one big shared world. The first step in building a city is gathering people. A few families, maybe a dozen, come together with a shared need, a common goal, and a fragile sense of trust. They choose the location that offers water, shelter, and protection. The land must be suitable, not just for survival, but for something more, something lasting. They build the first structures, not just homes, but places where people can come together, share, and begin to imagine a future beyond mere survival. These buildings are the foundation of cooperation. They are the physical and symbolic start of a community, a place where shared effort becomes something more than just survival. The first institutions are born in these spaces. They are not yet formal, but they are the seeds of law, governance, and shared responsibility. Once the need for cooperation is recognized, the next step is to design the mechanism that will sustain it. This is where institutions take shape, not as abstract ideas, but as tangible rules and roles that define how people interact. These early mechanisms often take the form of shared responsibilities and agreed upon roles. Someone must oversee resources, someone must mediate disputes, and someone must ensure the group moves forward together. The mechanism must also include ways to enforce compliance and resolve conflicts. Without this, cooperation falters, and the group risks falling back into chaos or fragmentation. But even with structure, the mechanism must remain flexible enough to adapt. It is this balance of order and responsiveness that allows institutions to survive and grow over time. Through this process, cities are not just built with stone and timber, but with trust, rules, and the shared belief that cooperation is worth the effort. Now, the clever twist comes in when the people start to realize that keeping the city running isn't just about survival. It's about creating something that lasts beyond their own lifetimes. They begin to formalize their agreements, writing them down, passing them on, and ensuring that even if they die, their city still has rules to follow. Institutions become the bridge between the individual and the collective, allowing people to trust that their work will not be lost and their contributions will be honored. This is how cities outlasted their founders, how cooperation became more than just necessity. It became a kind of legacy. Beneath the grand narratives of cities, there's a quiet, persistent force, an invisible scaffolding of patterns, rules, and shared expectations that allows people to live together in ways that defy chaos. This force isn't magic. It's the emergence of order from the chaos of human interaction, a process that scientists call emergence, where complexity arises from simple rules followed by many individuals. Cities, too, are built on such rules. Rules of land use, of trade, of movement, that are often not written but are deeply embedded in the fabric of daily life. These rules are not static. They evolve, adapting to the needs of the people, the environment, and the changing tides of history. It's a living system, not a set of rigid laws. To understand the rise of cities is to understand the quiet, mathematical beauty of human cooperation, an equation of survival, trust, and shared purpose. Imagine a group of strangers, each with their own needs and goals, coming together not by chance, but by necessity. They form a fragile agreement, a pact of mutual benefit. And in doing so, they lay the foundation for something far greater than themselves. This is not a story of heroes or miracles, but of ordinary people making a choice to cooperate. They create rules, assign roles, and build structures that allow them to work together without constant conflict. The institutions that emerge from this process are not perfect, nor are they infallible, but they are essential. They provide the scaffolding for human cooperation, allowing for the growth of culture, knowledge, and power. So when we look at cities today, we are not just seeing buildings and streets. We are seeing the result of a long, hard journey, one that began with a simple idea that together we can build something more than we could ever achieve alone. Comment this emoji if you made it to the end. There's something strangely intimate about the way a language lingers in the air, like a ghost of a voice that never quite fades. It's not just words we carry, but the rhythm of our lives, the way we speak, the way we listen, all shaped by the soil of our culture. Language is the thread that weaves through time, connecting generations, binding us to the past while shaping the future. But in the silence between words, there is a kind of truth, a truth that speaks louder than any sentence. To understand a culture is to understand the language that breathes through its people, and the silence that holds its meaning. So what exactly are we talking about? It's not just words, it's the rhythm of how we speak, the way we tell stories, the way we remember who we are. It's how we shape our world through language, how we carry the past in every phrase, and how we pass it on to the next generation, like a quiet inheritance. It's not just about the words we use, but the silence between them, the pauses, the unspoken, the things that language can't quite reach. Language is more than communication. It's the thread that weaves the fabric of who we are, the invisible force that holds our culture together. And when that language is lost or altered, something within us shifts, like the ground beneath our feet, slow and steady, but irreversible. So we're not just talking about words. We're talking about identity, memory, belonging, and the weight of history in every syllable we speak. You might think your identity is your own, but language and culture are the invisible threads that weave you into something bigger than yourself. When you speak, you're not just communicating. You're participating in a centuries-old conversations, carrying forward stories, values, and emotions that have shaped your world. If you ignore them, you risk losing more than words. You risk losing the very way you understand your place in the world. You should care because your identity isn't just yours. It's part of something vast, something fragile, and something worth protecting. We begin in the cradle of human speech, where language first tangled with culture, binding tribes to the land and each other through shared stories and rituals. Language became the vessel of memory, carrying the weight of ancestors and the hopes of the future, shaping what it meant to belong to a people. With the birth of writing, language was no longer just spoken. It was etched, inked, and inscribed, becoming a living archive of identity and resistance. In the modern era, language has become both a bridge and a border, connecting us across distances, but also dividing us in the name of tradition, ideology, and power. Today, we see the echoes of ancient tongues in modern dialects, and the weight of history in every word we speak, each a thread in the fabric of who we are. Imagine your favorite song, the one that makes you feel like home. That song is like the language you grew up with. It's the rhythm of your people, the way you remember who you are. When you speak your language, you're not just talking. You're telling a story about where you come from, about the dreams and fears of your ancestors. Language isn't just words. It's the way you laugh, the way you greet someone, the way you say goodbye. All of it is a piece of your culture. When a language disappears, so does a part of the world. A way of seeing, a way of being, a way of remembering who you are. But even in silence, the memory of a language lives on. In the way you hold your hands, in the way you smile, in the way you carry your people's story in your heart. Language isn't just words on a page, it's the heartbeat of a people, the rhythm that connects generations. It's the first thing we learn, the last thing we let go of, and the silent force that shapes how we see the world. In every culture, language becomes a kind of map, a way to navigate not just space but meaning. It defines who we are, where we come from, and what we believe is true. When we speak, we are not just using words. We are creating a shared reality, a world that only those who understand the language can fully inhabit. This is the first step, the setup. Language and culture are the foundation upon which collective identity is built. It begins with the words we choose, the stories we tell, and the traditions we carry forward. Language isn't just words. It's the rhythm of memory, the echo of ancestors, the quiet song that binds us to what we've known and what we've lost. Every time we speak, we're not just expressing thoughts. We're reinforcing the weight of our history, the shape of our shared world, the invisible lines that separate us from the unknown. When we speak in our native tongue, we're not just communicating. We're anchoring ourselves in a world that no longer feels entirely ours, yet still feels like home. This is the mechanism: language as a bridge, culture as the foundation, and identity as the weight we carry through time, shaped by every word we choose to say and every word we choose to forget. Language is the scaffolding of thought, but culture is the way it carries. It shapes not just how we speak, but how we feel about what we say. When a community repeats same words, they don't just echo meaning. They echo belonging. Each phrase becomes a thread in the fabric of who they are. This repetition is not passive. It is an act of resistance, of preservation, of claiming space in a world that may not understand or value what is being said. In this way, language becomes more than communication. It becomes a kind of memory, a way of holding on to what is at risk of being lost. And so, culture is not just what we carry. It is what we carry forward, through words, through stories, through the silent weight of shared meaning. Language isn't just words. It's the hum of a shared rhythm, the pulse of a culture that echoes through time. It's how we remember, how we mourn, how we find our place in the world. Every dialect, every idiom, every untranslatable word carries the weight of history. It's not just communication. It's a way of being in the world, shaped by the soil, the seasons, and the silence between words. Beneath the surface, language is a map of the mind, a blueprint of thought that defines how we see the world. It's not just what we say, it's how we feel, how we belong. When a language dies, it's not just words that vanish. It's a way of understanding, a way of living, a way of remembering who we are and where we come from. Language is the thread that weaves the fabric of identity, binding us to our ancestors, to our community, to the unspoken truths that shape our shared reality. Imagine a city where every building is made of glass, but no one can see through it. The windows are clear, but they're covered in a thin layer of mist that only reflects the people inside. It's a place where you can't see the outside world, only your own reflection. You think you're living in the world, but you're really just living in a mirror. The streets are real, but the people you walk past are just echoes of yourself. You can't escape the reflection, and you can't change the glass. Culture is the mist. It's the invisible force that shapes the glass, that determines what we can see and what we can't. It's the collective breath that moves the reflection, but it's never seen directly. So when we speak, we're not just talking. We're building a mirror. We're shaping what we see of the world and of ourselves. And in that mirror, we find our collective identity. Fragile, reflected, and ever-shifting. We are all just reflections in a world of glass. And maybe that's not a metaphor. It's the truth. We are shaped by language and culture, and we are shaped by the way we see ourselves in the mirror. Comment this emoji if you made it to the end. We live in an age where the world is more connected than ever. Yet the problems we face are more complex, more urgent, and more intractable than ever before. The internet has made us instantaneously aware of crises, but it has also fractured our ability to agree on how to respond to them. We are no longer facing enemies we can fight in the traditional sense. Instead, we are facing systems, forces, and choices that shape our world in ways we barely understand. The question is not whether we can cooperate, but whether we can still imagine what cooperation even means in this new, uncertain age. This is not just about politics or policy. It's about the kind of world we are willing to live in, and the kind of future we are willing to fight for. So what exactly are we talking about? It's not just about the headlines. It's about the invisible threads that bind us, fraying under the weight of division and indifference. We're discussing the growing gulf between nations, fueled by distrust, misinformation, and the erosion of shared values in an era of constant noise. It's about the future, not just of technology or economy, but of humanity itself. How we choose to collaborate or compete will define the world we leave behind. This is not just a debate about policy. It's a reckoning with our shared responsibility to build something more than a system. It's a vision of a common future. So, what are we talking about? We're talking about the fragile, yet vital, act of coming together in a world that seems determined to keep us apart. You might think this is just a story for policymakers or academics, but the truth is, it's your story too. The systems we build today, whether in tech, finance, or even everyday infrastructure, shape the world you live in, for better or worse. When we ignore the risks of division and fragmentation, we ignore the risks to our own lives. From climate change to digital surveillance, the consequences of global inaction are not abstract. They're felt in your community, your home, and your future. You might not be a world leader, but you are a part of the system. Your choices, your voice, and your engagement matter. The future is not a distant dream. It's a series of decisions being made right now, by all of us. So when you hear about global challenges, don't dismiss them as someone else's problem. They're not. They're a mirror, showing you what's at stake and what you can do to shape it. The 19th century was a time of empires, of steam and steel, of colonial ambitions that shaped the modern world. But it also sowed the seeds of division, as borders were drawn with little regard for the people who lived within them. The two world wars were not just conflicts of nations, but of ideologies, of civilizations clashing in a desperate struggle for survival and dominance. They left the world in ruins, but also set the stage for a new kind of global order. The Cold War was a global chess game, where power was measured not in battles, but in influence, in technology, in the unseen battle for the hearts and minds of the world. Then came the fall of the Berlin Wall, a moment that captured the world's imagination. It was more than a wall. It was a symbol of the end of an era, and the hope for a new one built on cooperation and shared destiny. But even as the Cold War ended, new challenges arose: climate change, inequality, and the rise of new powers that once were silent players on the global stage. The world has changed, but the need for cooperation has never been more urgent. Imagine the world as a big playground, and everyone has their own toy. But the toys are getting heavier, and the rules are changing fast. We all need to work together, even if we don't always agree on how to play. Sometimes the bigger toys are too hard to carry alone. That's when you need friends to help, even if you don't like their style of play. But the challenge is, you have to learn to listen before you can help. The world is like a puzzle with missing pieces. We can't fix it all by ourselves, but if we keep trying to find each other's pieces, we might just put it back together. So the core idea isn't just about working together. It's about learning to trust, even when the pieces don't fit yet. And that's where the real magic starts. The foundation of any cooperative effort begins with trust. But trust is not given. It's earned through transparency and shared purpose. Before any plan can take shape, the players must understand the rules of the game and who holds the power to shape them. The mechanism begins with trust. Trust that the system will function, that agreements will be upheld, and that all parties will act in the collective interest, not just their own. But trust is fragile. It must be reinforced by transparency, by clear communication, and by systems that make accountability possible, even when power is distributed. At the core of this mechanism is a network of institutions, both formal and informal, that bridge the gap between intention and action. They translate words into deeds. These institutions are not perfect. They are shaped by history, by politics, by the interests of the powerful. Yet, they remain the best we have, our shared scaffolding for building a better world. The mechanism works when it is seen as necessary, not just as convenient. When people choose to trust it, not because it's flawless, but because it's the only way forward. The clever twist lies in the design of the system itself, not just its goals. It's not about what the system does, but how it does it, in a way that invites participation and reduces resistance. This system uses algorithms that adapt to human behavior, not the other way around. It's like teaching a child to ride a bike. It learns from your actions, not just your instructions. This is where the real challenge begins, not in building the system, but in ensuring that the system doesn't become a tool of control, but rather a bridge between individuals and shared goals. The clever twist is that it's not about the technology itself, but about the human intention behind it. The system is only as ethical as the people who design it and the goals they choose to pursue. Ultimately, the clever twist is that the system is not a machine, but a mirror, reflecting back the values, choices, and ambitions of the people who use it. Beneath the noise of politics and headlines, there is a quiet pulse of science, unseen, unacknowledged, yet vital. It's the unseen thread that connects the dots between climate, pandemics, and artificial intelligence. This science is not just equations or models, it's the rhythm of the planet, the heartbeat of the earth, and the pulse of human progress. It's not political, but it shapes everything we do. In the quiet spaces between decisions, scientists are building models that predict not just the weather, but the future of our societies. These are the tools that let us imagine what's coming. But science alone cannot navigate the storm of today. It needs the courage of leaders, the wisdom of communities, and the humility of those who recognize that the future is not just a forecast. It's a choice. The science is there. The challenge is not in the data, but in the will to act. It's not about the machines or the models. It's about the people who choose to listen, to learn, and to lead. Imagine a vast interconnected web of strings, each one representing a country or a group of people. Some strings are taut, others are frayed, and a few are even cut entirely. The tension in the web is the fragile balance of global cooperation. Now, picture a child trying to pull one string without realizing it's holding the whole web together. Their innocent pull may seem small, but it can unravel the entire structure if not guided with care. The child may not know the scale of the web, but they can learn. They can see the consequences of their actions, and with time, they may become a guardian of the web, not just a puller of strings. In the end, the greatest challenge is not in pulling the strings, but in learning how to weave them. To build, not just to break. That is how we move forward, as one thread in a tapestry of the future. Comment this emoji if you made it to the end.